Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today we're going to 17th century Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, but not the Amsterdam you might be picturing.
Okay.
We're zeroing in on the city's Portuguese Jewish community.
Interesting.
Specifically, their interactions with African Blacks and Mulattos.
Sounds complicated.
It is. Religion, social customs, economics.
Oh, yeah, definitely economics.
Big time. It's a wild ride, so buckle up. Might even challenge some assumptions.
Looking forward to it.
To make it even more interesting, we're using some amazing research by Jose de Silva Horta and Peter Mark.
Oh, wow. Yeah, their work on the Sephardic Jewish communities on the West African coast.
Exactly. Adds a whole other dimension to this.
For sure. You can't just look at Amsterdam in isolation. Their practices reached across continents.
Absolutely. Before we get too deep, though, quick reminder for our YouTube viewers, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't miss any future deep dives. Okay, back to Amsterdam. Not a simple time or place, was it?
Not at all. You really need to understand the history of these Portuguese Jews, the Conversos.
Conversos.
Yeah, they were descendants of Jews in Portugal and Spain forced to convert to Christianity. Yeah. But secretly, many kept practicing Judaism.
Like a double life.
Exactly. And this background is really important because many conversos were involved in the transatlantic slave trade.
Really?
For generations. They even held asientos.
Asientos?
Yeah, contracts. Gave them the right to sell enslaved Africans in Spanish colonies.
Wow.
Families like the Rodriguez, Jimenez, and the Mendes were major players.
So they brought more than just their faith with them to Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah, their economic practices, too. When they arrived, it caused a stir. They often brought African servants.
But wasn't slavery illegal in the Netherlands?
That's right. Calling them servants let them kind of skirt around that law.
Ah, I see. But it wasn't just Dutch law they had to worry about, right?
Right. Jewish law, or halakha, also played a big role.
I bet Jewish law had something to say about owning slaves, even if they called them servants.
Absolutely. Jewish law said any male slave owned by a Jew had to be circumcised.
Okay.
And both men and women had to have a ritual bath.
So, a conversion process.
Exactly. And here's the thing. The law said Jews could only own a slave for 12 months.
Whoa.
After that, they had to become a full member of the Jewish community.
So, like, after a year, they'd be free?
Yeah, in theory. But it was more complicated.
How so?
Well, we have historical records, including from the Inquisition.
The Inquisition?
Yeah, they kept detailed records of Jewish practices, and it turns out some Sephardic Jews found loopholes.
Loopholes, like what?
One was to gift a slave to another Jewish person before the year was up. Basically reset the clock, and they could keep someone indefinitely.
So even within the Jewish community, there wasn't really agreement on how to handle slave ownership?
Definitely not black and white. This mix of religious law, societal norms, and economic reality. It's what makes this so interesting. And it brings us to a dilemma for the Amsterdam Jewish community. What about those African servants who didn't convert?
Sounds like a whole other level of complexity.
It definitely is. And it shows just how hard it was to balance religious beliefs with economic practices and societal pressure.
Yeah, so about that free soil tradition.
Free soil.
It's a big part of this story. It goes back to the 16th century legal precedents saying that any enslaved person, when they set foot on Dutch soil, they were considered free.
Wow, that's
pretty progressive, right?
What a time.
Yeah. So those African servants with the Jewish merchants,
all right,
they should have been free as soon as they got to Amsterdam.
So exactly. But like with a lot of things in history,
yeah, I know.
The practice didn't always match the theory.
So it wasn't automatic.
Nope. Enslaved people often had to actually fight for their freedom.
Do we have any examples?
Yeah.
Like how this actually played out?
We do. Records from 1626. Okay.
Four-nação merchants.
Nação merchants.
It's another term for Portuguese Jewish merchants in the Atlantic trade.
Oh, okay.
They arrived in Amsterdam with African slaves. They stayed for 3 months before leaving for Bayonne with their so-called property.
Wait, they were allowed to just leave with them?
Seems that way.
Yeah.
Shows you how complicated the legal situation really was. Even with free soil, it wasn't automatic. Enslaved people still had to assert their rights, and that wasn't always easy.
So how could they do that? I mean, actually claim their freedom?
Well, it wasn't until 1654 that Amsterdam officially made it a lie, added a provision, mirroring one in Antwerp, said that enslaved people could sue their masters for freedom in court.
Wow, they could sue.
Yeah. A big legal step, recognizing their legal personhood.
That's huge for the 17th century.
It was, but still not a simple process.
I can imagine.
Foreign legal system, probably no resources or support.
Yeah, how many actually won their freedom in court?
Good question.
No.
Hard to say. So what about the Jewish community? How did they respond to all this?
They knew the laws were changing. In 1650, they issued an ordinance.
What kind of ordinance?
Prohibited the circumcision
Really?
and ritual immersion of any more African blacks.
So no more converting them?
Right. Probably to avoid legal trouble. If they didn't do the conversion ritual, then technically they weren't their slaves under Jewish law.
Even if they were still serving them?
Exactly. Strategic move. Allowed a form of perpetual servitude to continue.
Wow. And it didn't stop there, did it?
Nope. This ruling became a model of their Nessa-Sound communities, especially in the Caribbean. No conversion rituals there meant that many enslaved Africans stayed that way. Perpetual laborers on plantations.
So a local decision in Amsterdam
I know, right?
had this huge ripple effect across the Atlantic.
It shows how interconnected history really is.
Decisions in one place.
Yeah.
Affecting so many other people.
Unintended consequences for generations.
Lots to think about. This interplay of religion, law, economics.
It all shaped their lives, both the Jewish community and the Africans they interacted with.
Yeah. Raises some tough questions. Moral dilemmas, adaptation, the legacy of this period.
It does. And we'll get into all of that as we continue our deep dive.
One ruling having such a big impact. It's crazy.
It really is.
Like Amsterdam affecting the whole transatlantic slave trade.
It all comes back to that interconnectedness.
It really does.
And this ruling, it wasn't just legal maneuvering, you know.
Yeah, what else is going on?
This pattern in history,
Okay.
religion and economics getting all tangled up.
And sometimes not in a good way.
Not at all. It makes you think about the ethical side of things.
For sure.
Like, how did they balance their beliefs with their business?
Especially with society changing its mind about slavery.
Yeah, tough questions.
Definitely. Makes you think, like, are we doing any better today?
Exactly. How do we handle our own values with everything going on now?
What compromises do we make?
What are the consequences?
Heavy stuff. But I think that's why we do this.
I agree.
Learning about history. It's not just about facts.
Right.
It's about understanding ourselves better.
And the world around us.
Yeah. If we can understand the past with all its messiness,
Yeah,
we can make better choices today.
absolutely.
So this deep dives into the Amsterdam Portuguese Jewish community.
It's been a journey.
It really has. We've seen the Conversos trying to find their way,
The impact of free soil
Jewish law,
and how they adapted to all the pressures around them.
and don't forget that one decision
Right.
having these ripple effects across the ocean.
Affecting generations.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And speaking of amazing discoveries,
Oh, yeah. Tell them.
if you've enjoyed this deep dive,
Make sure.
subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Hit that notification bell.
You won't miss any future explorations.
We've got more stories to tell.